Chronicle Live. As late as April of 2023, McMaster University insisted that the COVID pandemic was continuing and that the disease COVID was now the third cause of mortality in Canada. In a propaganda piece that attempts to conflate vaccine hesitancy with abuse of the elderly. There is, however, an unwitting and startling admission citing an apparent rise in mortality in the year 2022. Just 1 year after Justin Trudeau, the Prime Minister of Canada, drove pandemic response protocols which made COVID vaccinations mandatory for most, if not all, working Canadians, in addition to pushing them on to the elderly. We had more outbreaks in long-term care facilities in 2022 than we had in 2020 and 2021 combined, and more deaths and more hospitalizations than the first 2 years of the pandemic combined. End quote. And it failed to deliver in the year 2022. Furthermore, it is an inversion and falsehood typical of Canadian propaganda coming from the academic establishment to suggest that elderly abuse manifests itself COVID vaccines and boosters, which by its own unwitting admission here apparently led to, or certainly failed to prevent, excess mortality in the year 2022. Here's that quote again. We had more outbreaks in long-term care facilities in 2022 than we had in 2020 and 2021 combined, and more deaths and more hospitalizations than the first 2 years of the pandemic combined, end quote. And in what follows, here is where the propaganda leaves all pretense of being about medicine and enters the realm of sociological speculation and preaching sermons. The reason for not doing more to prevent COVID-19 appears to be ageism, plain and simple. There is no logical explanation for accepting an unnatural degree of hospitalization and premature deaths in elders, except that we value the lives of younger people more, end quote. Have much of a choice other than accepting these premature deaths, hospitalizations, which were being driven by the COVID mandates themselves enforced by the armed organs of state. Look, there seems to be a memory block here in the article, a convenient forgetting on the part of its nominal author. Professor of Medicine Don Bodish has apparently forgotten one of the driving slogans behind creating fear and isolation back in 2020, known typically as protect grandmother, protect your grandparents, and its variants as a slogan. In other words, isolate your grandfather and grandmother from the otherwise essential social frameworks, including contact with their grandchildren. And the picture you've been looking at right here, produced by the exact same article, is pushing the ludicrous mandates now in the year 2023. The mask, the corona handshake, social distancing, or more accurately, socially destructive distancing. The article continues, and I quote, "The toll of COVID-19 in older people. Unfortunately, dying isn't even necessarily the worst of it. It's just the part that's easier to count and that makes the most headlines. There is still a sea of suffering out there as older people, who are more likely to have other health issues, get sick with COVID and take a long time to recover, if they do recover." And once again, a complete disconnect. Here's the short list: isolation, fear, medical neglect, remdesivir, intubation, and adverse reactions. The same ones this professor of medicine is pushing in her article. in 2023. This is APM 84-010.